Enter. View.
All right. And we have officially started recording. So that does signal the beginning of our workshop. So, first of all, I'd like to welcome everybody to our monthly workshop here on Zoom. And it's brought to you by the Florida Outreach Center for the Blind. My name is Jason Goldfield. I am your host for today, and I am joined by my co host, Manis Passias, who will be co-hosting for me as well, and will be watching the board and monitoring for questions and answers during the course of our presentation. Um, one second.
Alta. Audio now unmuted.
All right. Just a couple house rules I wanted to go over before we turn the floor over to our guest speaker today, because we have a wonderful guest speaker for you guys today on a very, very important subject that affects everybody on here, because by you joining us here on Zoom, you are using the internet. So, and today's subject covers so many different areas of the internet. Uh, and that would be cybersecurity. So by you getting on the internet, you are susceptible to cybersecurity, and we want to make sure that you're well educated and know the ins and outs of cybersecurity and how you can protect yourself. So I want to go over a few house rules. Just number one, first off, this uh, workshop is being recorded and it will be available. We'll talk about the various ways how you can obtain a copy of the recording a little bit later on in our presentation. Number two, and we have some people joining us. Welcome to the folks who are just joining us. Number two, as you notice that you all are muted, and we ask that you please stay muted during our presentation. This is a courtesy to our guest speaker and to the other participants. I'm sure we will have times for questions and comments and all that good stuff, and we'll go over all that at the point of our presentation when it calls for it. And number three, although I think they're kind of done around here today, um, we are having some construction done here at the Florida Outreach Center. So if you hear any loud noises, banging, drilling, hammering, whatnot, I apologize for that. They said they were wrapping up for the day, which I think they kind of are. I hope so. So we're having new windows put in here. So try to minimize the noise as best we can, but we'll do our best. So if you hear any of that type of noise in the background while I'm unmuted, I apologize for that. So anyway, and I think that does cover all of our housekeeping rules. Um, so at this point, I would like to turn the floor over to our guest speaker for today, and we are very happy to have Miss Contrita Brockway. She is with the Palm Beach County Library System here in Palm Beach County, Florida. For those that are listening to us from outside of our local area, that we are located in Palm Beach County, Florida. So she is with the Palm Beach County Library System. And as I mentioned, she is here to talk about a very important subject that affects all of us, which is on cybersecurity. So, Katrina, the floor is all yours.
Thank you very much. I'm very happy to be here. Hello, everyone. Thank you for having me. As Jason said, I am Katrina Brockway. I'm the Assistant Branch Manager at the Lantana Road Branch Library in Palm Beach County. So, if you are local, I would love to meet you. If you ever happen to stop by the library, I'd be happy to walk you around, give you a tour. And so, yeah, what we're going to be talking about today is cybersecurity. And so I'm just going to be giving an introduction. This is a huge topic that people spend entire careers on, and we're not going to go that deep on it. So, what we're going to be trying to do today is just an overview to give us all an idea of best practices to keep ourselves safe online when we're communicating by text, by email. And I'm even going to touch a little bit on some phone things that happen that are kind of newer, but do kind of fall into this under this umbrella of cybersecurity. So, I want to get started with just a definition. What do we mean by cybersecurity? I found a couple that I liked. So, cybersecurity is the practice of protecting systems, networks, and programs from digital attacks. These cyber attacks are usually aimed at accessing, changing, or destroying sensitive information, extorting money from users through things like ransomware or interrupting normal business processes. And the other one that I'm working with is cybersecurity is the art of protecting networks, devices, and data from unauthorized access or criminal use, and the practice of ensuring confidentiality, integrity, and availability of information. And all of that sounds like way big practices that individual, regular, normal people don't have to take care of. But it is actually important for all of us because so much of our personal information and so many of our daily activities these days are online in one way or another. So you can think of things like our medical records are now put online by our doctors. If you've ever had to log into a patient portal or been told by your doctor that you can log into your patient portal to request your prescription or see your test results, that's your medical information online. Our banking information is online. I can't even tell you the last time I set foot in a proper bank because we have so much of our banking information online. We can pay our bills, make transfers, and all of those things through apps or on the internet. Um, our if we go shopping, anytime we save our credit card number or we do any kind of online shopping, if you're a one-click buyer on Amazon, like I am guilty of being, that is our credit card information online and potentially accessible to people on the internet. And I try to be an interactive speaker. So if you want to suggest in the chat other things that you can think of as examples, I'd love to hear what your examples are of things that are online right now. You're more than welcome to do that. I know that the house rules are muted, so you could chat, but if I see any popped up, I will share those as well if you can think of an example. I'll provide another one if you think about any communication, if you text folks back and forth, or if you use any social media platforms. That's an example of information that gets passed back and forth online. Um, if you use any services like entertainment services, they have a lot of our information when you set up those profiles. Um, and anybody who plays any kind of interactive video games, or if you use GPS as as you're transported around to get someplace, that's information that's online. So what I would say is that bad actors can and do infiltrate all of these systems and more and networks, and they do that to alter files, to steal identifying information. They do that to make unauthorized purchases, to delete informations or systems. They can use your computer to attack others, so kind of a way to um, hide their identities while they are doing other nefarious things. Um, and those are just a few of the reasons that people may try to get your information, get your login, and get into your computer. So I want to go over a couple of terms that I'm going to be using. And the one I'm going to say this word a million times or some variation of it, is secure or security. But what I need you to do every time I use that word is imagine like a little footnote that goes along with it, that is saying Well, I mean, as secure as possible or as the best as we can do, because nothing is 100% secure. That is a really important thing to remember. Absolutely nothing can ever be made 100% secure unless it is not online. So it's kind of like when you're securing your home to go out. You can make sure that all of the doors and the windows are closed. You can set your alarm. You can deadbolt the front door. You can make sure that you haven't handed out copies of keys to everybody in the world. But with enough time and with the right tools, a determined thief can still break in. And that is the exact same for your computer. With enough time and the right tools, anybody can get in. So everything that we are talking about today is to help you to secure, with a little asterisk and a footnote, yourself and your information. We want to try to get your house so that to be so annoying to break into, basically, that the thief moves on and finds something else to do. And hopefully everybody's house is so secure that eventually they get bored and they stop. Um, Couple other words that I'm going to use frequently are attacker, hacker, or intruder. Those are all words that I'll use just to describe an individual or individuals who are looking for ways to get past and exploit the weaknesses in our computer systems. And I'll also be talking about malicious code or malware. This term covers a lot of ground. It includes things that are also called viruses, worms, Trojan horses, a whole host of unwanted files or programs that can cause harm to a computer or to compromise the data on the computer. I'm going to talk about specifics of those later, but just as we discuss it, I'm going to be using malware or malicious code as just an umbrella term for those types of things. Okay, so internet privacy and personal information. We hear those concepts a lot. What do we mean by that? We mean that we should be revealing as little of ourselves or as little information about ourselves as possible. Um, Back when the internet was brand new, we were all going around giving our age, sex, and location. And we were telling everybody where we were and what our whole name was and where, where we lived and where we grew up and our school and all that stuff. And we have learned since then that that is probably not the best course of action. We don't want to be telling everybody in the world everything about ourselves online. You want to be able to keep that as private as you can. Um, so, obvious things that you don't want to be sharing with people that I am sure that you all are well aware of: your whole name, your full date of birth, your social security number, your full address. Those are very, don't tell a stranger those things. We know that. But does anybody have any examples of maybe less obvious information that you don't want to share with a stranger that would lead back to you? So, some examples that I have are things like your workplace. A lot of companies have full directories online. If you share your workplace, somebody could easily track back what your full name might be, what your position might be, etc. Um, City of birth might be one that people can ask, and you don't necessarily need to share. Your current state of residence, you can certainly keep that private in a lot of situations. You don't necessarily need to
Alter
share where
audio
that
now
is.
unmuted.
Katrina, this is Jason really
Yes.
quick. I'm sorry. We do have a couple hands. Would you like to take those or do you want to
Oh,
wait
sure.
till
Absolutely. I'm
okay,
sorry I can't see raised
sure.
hands.
Oh,
Let
that's
me know.
okay. Yeah, I don't I don't know if people know how to use the chat. So
Okay.
they raise
No,
their
raised
hand.
hands.
So
Absolutely.
yeah,
Please.
so it was kind of up to you on how you wanted to do this. So
If
sure,
you
we
can
can
let
do
me
that.
know because that is not popping up on my screen, or if
Oh,
it is,
okay.
it's popping up in a way that I'm not finding it.
That's okay. So Manus, are you there? One second. Manus? I guess he can't come on. Just want to go over really quick on how we raise hands on Zoom for those that are familiar with this, we appreciate that, but I always like to just go over that really quick for those that are not too familiar. If you're on a Windows PC, it is Alt Y to raise your hand, and when your name is called, it would be Alt A to unmute. That's the keyboard command. If you're on a tablet or a smartphone, it would be under more options. And then there's a raise hand command under there, and then the microphone's on the main screen. And if you're on a telephone, if you dialed in with the one touch method or dialed directly,
1561276.
You would do *9 to raise your hand and *6. So Manus, are you able to unmute? Okay, I guess not. So bear with me 1 second. I can look at the raise hand.
I figured out I figured it out if it helps. I see Nellie has a hand raised.
Okay, so Nellie, you can go ahead and unmute yourself.
Hi, everybody. I think this is really an excellent call, and thank you.
Oh, you're welcome.
In answer to the question about another item that you would not want to disclose to anybody, mother's maiden name.
Absolutely. Yes, absolutely. That is almost always one of the options for security questions. And so you don't want to go around sharing that because then that's kind of giving one layer of protection away, right? Thank you.
Thank you, Nellie. Do we have any more hands that you can see?
I do not, but
Okay.
if anybody else wants to jump in,
Okay.
now that I've found the hands part, I can
Okay.
help with that. That's excellent. Thank
Yeah,
you.
I'm using a screen reader, so I'd have to listen to that with my jaws. So, but if you can see it, that would be a little bit more helpful. Okay.
Yes,
So I
absolutely.
guess there's no other raised hands, so you can go ahead and continue.
Not yet. So one of the things to think about is if you're a social media user, there's a lot of surveys that float around where people ask like get to know you questions, get to know you games, and ask all kinds of questions like, what's your pet's name or your first pet's name or your favorite place? And those, like Nellie had brought up, are also the common security questions. So this is absolutely not to say that your aunt or cousin or neighbor who is sharing those things is definitely a bad person who's trying to get all of your information. But once it's out there online, that information is out there, it's out of your control. So it's just something to be mindful about so that we're not just handing over the keys to your castle and leaving your front door wide open. So one of the things I want to talk about is how we choose safe passwords. So that's your very, very first layer of protection. That's your lock on the door. It's really important to choose your passwords in a way that will help you to keep your information private. Choosing a putting a password on, that's the lock on the door. Putting a strong password on, that's your deadbolt, that's your chain, that's making sure that everything is extra secure. I found a very interesting article from Forbes magazine in 2019 that they listed the worst passwords because they were the easiest ones to crack. The top ones, I've got the top 5 here: 12345, 12345 6, 123456789, test one, and password. So, common passwords like these are they're things that get thrown at accounts automatically. It's kind of like somebody going down the line in the neighborhood and just testing all of the doorknobs. There are programs that can just throw passwords at accounts, and they're programmed with these very, very common passwords. If you're using them, yours is one of the doors that's going to get, you know, thrown right open. And so it's a way to brute force yourself in. Another common mistake, I guess we could say, would be to use a dictionary word, meaning just a common word, not a proper name or anything, just a word that can be found in the dictionary. Because attackers can create programs that test systems by just running through all the words in the dictionary. Just set up a computer to do that, which means that even the weird ones, even the weird words in the dictionary, are included in there. So password memorization is terrible, and we use those easy passwords to make our life easier. So what are some best practices? What are the best things that we can do? Um, Here are some don'ts. Don't use the same password over and over again. Don't use any part of your name, your date of birth, or any other information that is easily discoverable. Um, don't use letters or numbers in a string that are found immediately next to each other on a keyboard. So if you were to put your hands on your keyboard in any spot on the keyboard and just run through them in order, even though it's gibberish, it's one of the easiest ones to guess and get through. Um, Make sure that if you are using dictionary words, you're using ones that are longer than 3 letters. In combination with each other. So even if you replace a couple numbers, you want them to be longer and with other things in combination so that they are harder to guess. And as much as possible, and I will fully admit that I am guilty of doing this sometimes because I am not a perfect person, you want to not enable the save password feature on websites and things when you're prompted to do so. Because that's just putting more information out there that if that website was compromised, now your saved password is also compromised. So, what can you actually do? What are the steps that you can take? You can create a longer password. The longer, the better. A lot of the references that I was looking at was saying something that in the 14 to 16 character range is something that is ideal, which is very, very long. Trust me. That sounds, it gives me a headache to think about remembering those. Combine upper and lowercase letters. Passwords are often case sensitive, and so creating more variables in your passwords is really important. Use numbers and special characters. The more random, the better. Change your passwords frequently. Every few months is ideal. You don't have to try to change them every week or anything like that, but maybe every few months is best. Um, and again, I think I said already, but make them as random as possible. And I saw this example, which I thought was really helpful. It said to start with something like a song lyric that you like, for example. So let's start with Somewhere Over the Rainbow. And then it got shortened to capital S for somewhere, lowercase w for the where in somewhere. It had a 0 for the O, a plus sign for the T, a capital R and an 8 for a capital R, an 8, and an N for the rain, and a capital B and a capital O for the bow. If you personally have a song lyric or something that sticks for you and that works, that's a really, really secure way to be able to create passwords, especially if you're musically minded. Um, if you are not musically minded, then there is another suggestion that was useful, which was use a string of words that are entirely unrelated thematically. So things like horse, enamel, laptop, iceberg, toolbox, rowing. If you're good at remembering strings of things like that, that was another option. However, we are all human beings, and remembering all of these random things is very, very difficult. So the government agency on cybersecurity actually also recommends try a password manager. These are tools where you can save your passwords in a more secure format, and it can remember all of these crazy bananas strings of letters and numbers and words that are really difficult for us to remember. Um, and also enable things like multi-factor authorization. I'm going to explain a little bit more about both of those things. So, password managers. Password managers are programs that can generate passwords, secure passwords for you. They can store them for you, and they can even fill them in for you. There are a lot of options for these. Some of these are free. Some of them are apps that do cost money. They help making using strong randomized passwords a lot easier. Um, I work for the library, which means I work for the government, which means that I cannot recommend a specific source for you, but what I can recommend is a resource for you. So I would advise that you use something like Consumer Reports, and that can help you to choose what would work best for you in this kind of circumstance. So Consumer Reports can give you information about password managers, and you can figure out what's something that works best for the way that you work and operate online. Um, and enabling multi-factor authorization or two-factor authorization. A lot of websites have started using these. A lot of different places have started using multi-factor authorization, and that's a good thing. It's kind of a pain to get through the first couple of times if you're not used to it, but it's an added layer of security that improves the odds that a hacker won't have all of the information that they're going to need to access your device or account. So in some cases, it's going to require something that you have or you do, like it will text you a code that you have to enter, or you have to open a specific app on your phone. Sometimes they're going to require an extra piece of information that you know, like a PIN number, a security question response, or like a second password. And sometimes it's even as simple as something that you are, like if you have a phone that has a fingerprint reader or does a face scan, those also count as multi-factor authorization. Okay, so I just dumped a lot of information all at once. I want to give an opportunity if you have any questions about passwords and password
Folder. Audio now
security and any
unmuted.
of that.
Okay. Um, I have a question. So while
Absolutely.
we're waiting for any raised hands, what is your opinion about using these password managers that are out there?
So it is definitely recommended. So CISA, CISA, is the government organization that gives a lot of like regular person citizen advice on cybersecurity, and they suggest using password managers to just help, because human beings are going to be human beings. We're going to kind of fall back on things that are easier, using the same word over and over again, using simple things to remember, because honestly, there are way too many passwords in our lives now, right? They're hard to remember. So these password managers make it a lot easier to use strong passwords because it can help store those for you, and keep track, and then and create them and enter them for you.
Wonderful. Okay. Yeah, I know one that I'm sure I know there's many of them out there, but I know one that comes to mind. It's actually called One Password. So
Okay.
while it's not free, I heard it's supposed to be quite easy to use and it's very secure and it comes highly recommended, but I don't want to just speak to one. So, but that was just the one that came to my mind. So
Yeah.
Manus, are you there? Finally. I know he said he was having some problems with his computer.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, that's okay. Manus, can you unmute? Are you able to do that? Well, I guess not yet. I know he's there. He texted me and said that he had to reboot his computer. That's
Oh,
okay. That's what technology is all about.
yeah,
So
that's why we have backups, right?
yeah, I don't think we have any raised
Nope.
hands that
I
I
can I can barrel on then. I
I'm
just
not
want
sure
to
if it's
make
right
sure that
there,
I
but
give
continue.
an
yeah,
opportunity for sure.
yeah.
All right. So let's talk a little bit about being
I'm
secure.
here.
Oh,
Oh,
you are
are you
here.
already? There
Oh,
you
okay.
are.
There you
Hello.
are.
Yes, I kept clicking, but nothing was happening.
Okay. All
Yes,
right.
I've been having issues. My computer froze on me, but I'm here. But I do not see
Oh,
any raised hand, so you can continue.
all right. Thanks, Bandus.
Sorry
Yeah,
about
no,
that.
no problem. So let's talk a little bit about being smart and secure while we are out and about. So secure passwords are only going to be able to help us so far. So we need to be very careful about the software that we're running, the websites that we visit, and the networks that we are using. So software updates. And I apologize, my phone's going nuts. I don't know if you can hear that. I apologize. Software updates. Nothing, we've talked about it a couple times, nothing is perfect. So that includes the software that we run on our devices, on our computers, the apps that we're using on our phones and our laptops and our tablets. Um, And the bad news is that if there's a weakness, no matter how well intentioned the software designers and the hardware designers are, if there's a weakness, there is someone out there who is going to find it. But the good news is that there are a lot of folks whose job it is to find and fix those chinks in the armor. But they can only get those fixes to you after you have already started, downloaded these apps or used these software programs. They can only get them to you through updates. So we cannot be lazy about updating our devices. Sometimes we just want to get to the thing we're trying to do, and that pop-up that tells us that it's time to update our thing, we want to ignore it, but that's really not the best course of action. So wherever you can, you want to take advantage of automatic updates, because that just means that you don't have to think about it. If your phone is going to update to the newest software, the newest software every time you go to bed, that's great. It means that you're not having to worry about um, doing it yourself, or whether or not you've remembered or forgotten to do this, and your device is going to be more secure. It's also important to learn how to recognize secure websites. So, an insecure website is something that is a site that might contain malware, which can cause all kinds of problems for you. We're definitely going to get into more specifics about what malware and viruses and all of those things do. But insecure sites are designed especially to be deceptive and confusing, and they're intended to try to trick you into sharing sensitive information. So, an example of that would be a site that is designed to mimic a banking site, and they're relying, for example, on somebody typing in or entering the wrong site when they're, too hurriedly going to just do their online banking, pay their bills for the month, or whatever that you're planning to do online. And if we're not careful, that site might not actually be our bank site. It might be one that has been built to behave and appear as though it is, but it's really just trying to steal your information. Most Look, here's the good news, because all of these things, it's kind of a scary topic, and I apologize, but I'm trying to provide the good news everywhere that I can. Most modern internet browsers do have built-in safety features for this purpose. So if you do accidentally navigate to an unsafe site, or to a site with known safety issues, um, the browsers will usually inform you by presenting a warning. Just don't ignore that. Don't click out of the box. Don't, swipe away the alert. You're going to want to pay attention to those warnings that you get from your browsers about potential unsafe sites. Another indicator can be found in a site's full web address. So if you're going to a site that you've never gone to before, and you want to know if that site is secure and legitimate websites have a certification that is called a Secure Sockets Layer, or an SSL. This means that the owners or the makers of that website had to prove to the people who issue these certifications that they are who they say they are. They are Chase Bank, they are Amazon, they are any of these sites that they are claiming to be. It means that it's certified, that the site offers encryption to protect your personal data. So if you type in your password, it's going to encrypt it before it passes that on to the next, to get you through. If the site has an SSL certification, it means that the full web address will begin with HTTPS. It's that S that means secure. And it will have a lock icon on the left, usually the far left side of the address bar. That kind of depends on your browser. Okay, so that doesn't mean that a site that does not have it is not safe to look at. It's just one that you don't want to enter any personal information. And hopefully that distinction makes sense. Or look at browse. It's not necessarily a site that is unsafe to be on or to get information from. It is just a site that you don't want to give information to. And hopefully that makes sense. Okay. Additionally, tools like Google's Safe Browsing site status page, excuse me, is another website that it's a safety checker that you can use to help verify the security about any site that you're not sure about. Um, Jason, if I type a website into the chat box, is that something that can be saved
Alter
and
audio now.
sent forward to everybody who's
Um,
listening?
I'm not quite for sure. You can try it. I don't think I have the full chat enabled, so I think it's just for display purposes.
Okay. Then what
So,
I'll tell you is what you can search for. How about that? And then if you want to find this on your own, because it's kind of a long web address, but what you'll be looking for is the transparency report on Google or the safe browsing search. I think if you find both of those, if you just want to be able to test a website and see if that is one that is secure, that is a tool that can help you. All right, so I looked up a little bit because I wanted to understand how screen readers worked for this presentation. So one thing that I think you'll have an advantage if you are a person who's using a screen reader is to be on guard for typos. If there's a lot of typos on a website and your screen reader's really struggling to read to you what it is that is on the site, be concerned, have some concerns. um, if it's a blog and somebody's sharing their diary and they just maybe are not the best speller, that's okay. But if it's a professional website or supposedly professional website that has a lot of typos on it, um, that is something to be worried about. There's also, you want to be careful about typos in web addresses because a common trick is to do something that's called typo squatting, which is when somebody buys a domain name that is similar to a well known site. So, for example, instead of Google with GOOGLE, it would be something that was like GOOGLE.com. So you just want to be very careful with typos because they're kind of a tell for insecure sites. So if you ever end up following a link or navigating to a site that maybe you think you've been on before and it's supposed to be familiar and you know how it usually works, and suddenly it's functioning differently, trust your gut. Um, you might want to check the URL to make sure that it was typed correctly, make sure that you're in the right place. If it turns out that you're not, don't keep clicking around. You'll want to close the window. You're going to want to clear your history and your browsing data to help make sure that you don't go back, that your computer doesn't try to helpfully autofill your next attempt to get to your website with the wrong thing. And you can report the site if you think it's a scam. So you can go to reportfraud.ftc.gov to report it if you think that there's something to worry about there. So just some additional red flags. A lot of pop-ups is a red flag. Again, design problems, things that don't work the way that they're supposed to. Consistently bad reviews are a sign that that site might not be secure, but also uniformly positive reviews. A lot of sites can create very quickly a lot of reviews for themselves. So if all of the reviews are super positive and basically seem like clones of each other and they just sound very repetitive. This is the very best site in the world. This is the very best site in the world over and over again. Be worried about that. That could be dangerous. So any questions? That was also another big chunk of information. Are there any questions on
Alter audio
that?
now unmuted.
well, I don't think we have any raised hands at this
No, I do
time,
not.
but I have a question though. I
Absolutely.
don't mean to always be the one asking the questions.
I
And
welcome questions
yeah.
because you might trigger somebody else's thought.
That's okay. That's all
I
right.
do have one, Jay. I'll let you go first.
Okay, yeah. So let me just ask mine really quick while I had it on my mind.
For sure.
And I don't know if this is something you want to go down, but how about if people are using, if you use a VPN?
I'm actually going to get to that. So if I can put a
Okay.
pin in
I'm
that,
sorry. I don't mean to jump ahead. All right.
no, 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 that's totally fine. But if I
Okay.
could put a pin in that, I'm
Yep.
going to answer a little bit
All,
about that later.
Alrighty. So now we'll get to our raised hand.
Sure. Manus, did you said you had a question?
Yes, actually, I did have a question. The other day I received an email. The name on the email was a colleague of us at the center. So the name says her name,
Mm-hmm.
but the email address was not her email address.
Yes, that is definitely something to be careful about. I'm going to talk also a little bit about warning signs for emails and when emails might not be what we think they are, but you definitely want to be checking things like that, that messages come from the person that you think that they're going to be coming from.
Mhm.
Often, especially with people that we know, we have multiple ways to get in touch with them. So if we have an email or a text or a phone call that gets directed at us that just seems out of the ordinary or seems to be coming from a strange place, use a different avenue of communication to get back to that person, and say, "Hey, I got a weird message from you. Was that really you?" And a lot of times it is going to be, "Oh yeah, I got a new number. Oh yeah, I got a new email address." Um, but it can definitely be a way to protect yourself, and that is also another thing that I want to be talking about in a couple minutes.
Okay, I'll wait.
Yeah. I appreciate all of the it's a confidence boost to know that I'm touching on the right topic. So thank you very much for the
No
question.
problem.
Sure.
Thank you.
All right. So, unless there are any more questions, I don't think there are, I'm going to
I
continue.
I
I'm
don't
going to
have any raised hands.
Sure thing.
Okay.
So, I'm going to talk a little bit about secure networks also. So, while we are out and about, so what is so to clarify what I'm talking about when I say a secure network, the fancy definition is that it's a network infrastructure that has implemented safety features to protect the confidentiality and integrity of its data. It ensures that unauthorized access, data breaches, and malicious activities are prevented or minimized. In regular people language, that means that if you are walking around in the world and you are in the mall or you're in Whole Foods or you are at the library and you are logging in to the Wi-Fi in that area, for example, a secure network is one that the people who designed it have taken steps to make sure that everyone who's using it, their information is safe. That information travels only between you and where it's supposed to, and that everybody else who's floating around using that same Wi Fi or network doesn't have access to all of your stuff just because you're in the same area. So secure networks, they keep operating systems up to date. They scan the network for malware regularly. They implement strong email security measures, and they utilize tools such as antivirus software and firewalls, meaning antivirus software which scans files on your computer's memory for patterns that indicate the presence of malicious software, or a firewall, which is network security that monitors incoming and outgoing network traffic to decode whether or not to block specific things based off of a set of rules. So it means that an IT person set up rules that are what is allowed in and what is not. So how can you tell? How could you possibly know if a network is secure? And much to my own frustration when I was reviewing all of this, my husband is an IT guy, he's a security guy. And he's like, the short answer is no, you can't tell. And I got really mad at him. So the short answer is unless you personally set up that network, you can't be positive. But there are signs. So you have to think carefully before you join any network, before you jump on public Wi-Fi, use a hotspot. Um, know that you are opening yourself up to some risks. But if you are in a position where you feel like you need to connect, there are ways that you can mitigate that. So, first, you're going to verify that you are selecting the correct network. So, just like we talked about bogus websites having, you know, names that are very close to legitimate names, you want to make sure that the network that you're connecting to has the correct name. So if you are in a trusted coffee shop, you're just there with a friend, you need to be able to, log in for whatever reason, and you check with the coffee shop owners, and they tell you that the Wi-Fi is our underscore coffee shop. It means that you definitely don't want to connect to our underscore coffee underscore shop. That would be somebody who is trying to mimic the address so that you get onto their network. Bonus points if it's a network that has a password, and the lovely coffee shop owners only give out the password to the people that are using the shop, because that means they have added a layer of security for you and everybody else there. While you're on a public network or on a network that you're not sure about, you're going to avoid transmitting sensitive data. So think twice. Do I really, really, really need to fill out this form that includes questions about my social security number while I am sitting at the airport logged into the public Wi-Fi? You just want to be careful. If the network that you're logging into requires you to create a username or a password, you're going to want to come up with something that's unique for this purpose. Like me at the airport today, and your password, a secure password, and then delete it later. You don't need that anymore, but you don't want to reuse a regular username or password, although we're not supposed to have regular passwords, but you don't want to reuse a regular username or password for a one-time thing. And then forget the network when you're done. When you leave, you can go into your Wi-Fi options and you could tell it to forget that network so you don't log into it by accident next time you're just driving by the airport or you're visiting the coffee shop and you don't need to log in. Forget it so that your phone doesn't do it while you're not aware about it. And finally, and this is like what was brought up a minute ago, you can use a virtual private network or a VPN. So, what that service does is it masks your IP address and location, and it encrypts any data that is leaving your device. It kind of works as your own personal network and like a second stop between your device and the network you're joining. It's something that's worth considering setting up for yourself if you frequently travel or you frequently need to connect to public resources, the library included. Those applications do mostly have an associated cost. There are some free ones. Again, I work for the government. I work for the library. I cannot recommend a specific service to you, but you can do a little bit of research for yourself and see if that's something that you would like to implement for yourself. It's usually something, just an app that you would download onto your device, and you can go from there. Okay. Did that answer your question about the VPN?
All the audio now unmuted.
Yes, it did. Thank you.
Okay, perfect.
Thank you.
I have
Yeah.
a question.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah. Now you mentioned something a moment ago that makes a lot of sense. But sometimes when you go, let's say for example, you go to a public place like a hotel or one of those places,
Yes.
and they have you sign in as guests in their own private network.
Mhm.
You said that when you check out of that hotel, you have to delete that from your phone. Did I hear that correctly?
So that would just be advisable. So our phones or devices, a lot of them are kind of programmed to remember networks that you sign into a lot. Like if
Uh-huh.
you're at home, it remembers that you're at home. You don't have to individually log into your home network if you're using the internet wirelessly at home. However, if you're out and around, if you, like you said, you check into a hotel and you use their network while you're there, it's just a good idea safety wise as you're checking out or when you leave to have your device forget that network. Um,
Mhm.
just if you didn't, don't panic. Don't panic. I don't want anybody to panic if you haven't done it so far. It's okay. It's you could just carry on from now. Now that you have the information, we know better. We could do better. Um, like I said, I am very much not a perfect person. I don't always remember all these steps myself, and that isn't to try to tell you that oh, too late, cat's out of the bag, you're all in trouble, everybody is doomed. That's not what this is about. Okay.
Okay.
It's just a safety practice that can just an extra layer of security for yourself. Okay,
Thank you.
you are welcome. Okay, so if there aren't any additional questions,
I don't see any at this time.
okay. So, what is all the security protecting us from? We're doing all of these things. What is this protecting us from? We are doing this to protect ourselves from the different forms of cyber attack that are out there. So, there are a lot. I'm going to talk about two. These are the two most common things that we as regular, ordinary people may face. And so I'm going to just talk about malware specifically and phishing. Okay. So malware, it's a word, it's kind of a smushed together word that's short for malicious software. It's a term that encompasses any kind of software that is used to gain unauthorized access in order to steal data, to disrupt services, to damage your computer network or your devices in any way. So these include things like viruses. So a virus is a specific kind of program that spreads first by infecting the files or the system areas on your computer's hard drive, and then it starts making copies of itself. So seems pretty obvious where the name comes from. It works just like a virus that you catch like a cold. It infects you first, and then it starts just making copies of itself and keeping you sick until you can kind of get over it. But with the object of being able to spread to other people and make other people sick. So that's how viruses live. So they are primarily spread through email messages, and often they require some sort of user action, like opening an email attachment or visiting a malicious website to spread. Viruses are computer programs, which means that anything that you can do on a computer, anything that you can imagine happening on a computer, is something that a virus can do, and it can make other computers do. So the most common example that we hear is don't open an attachment that you don't recognize, right? When somebody sends you something and you don't know why my cousin Mary is suddenly sending me this Word document for no reason at all with no message attached. I'm going to check with Mary. Mary, did you send me a Word document for no reason with no message attached? Because it's very possible that that could be a virus. Okay. A worm, which, and this is a word that I learned recently, is a type of virus that can spread without human interaction. So it does everything a virus does, but without us having to really do anything. Those are probably more likely to be on, malicious websites or things that once we have interacted with them in some way, we don't have to do anything else. There's no attachment we have to open before it will continue working on its own. That's where all of the network security and secure website stuff comes in. A Trojan horse misrepresents itself as a benign program or utility in order to persuade a victim to install it. So Trojan horses usually carry a hidden destructive function that's activated when the application is started that's working in the background. Unlike other viruses or worms, Trojan horses don't generally replicate themselves. It's kind of like a one and done deal. They can contain any manner of function. It's a computer program, it can do anything. But most of them are kind of the initiator to install other features on your device. So you start by downloading something that you think is a real thing that you want. And it's going to pretend to do that while it is doing other things in the background, uploading and installing other viruses and other malware on your computer. Backdoors. So that is a very broad term for a computer program that offers the attacker unauthorized access to a computer or a network. So the hacker often uses something else, so something like a Trojan horse or a virus, to bypass all the authentication mechanisms over an unsecured network. That's a lot of big words to say that basically it gets around your password. It's a way to kind of create a door where there wasn't a door before. to let a person into your device. Ransomware is a malicious software that gains access to sensitive information within a system. It encrypts it so that you can't read it anymore and you can't access it, and then it demands a financial payout for the data to be released. So this is commonly part of phishing scams, which I'm going to talk about next. So just hold on to that for a second. But just keep in mind, it works exactly like kidnapping for ransom. It takes a hold of what you have and it makes it so that you can't get to it unless you pay something to get through. And finally on my list, because that was a long list already, is spyware. And spyware they're programs that are used to monitor web browsing, keystrokes, any other activity, and report it back to a remote user. So instead of disrupting anything on your own computer, it's not changing anything that you're doing. It just targets the information and reports it. So it kind of gives the opportunity to predators to get remote access. So it keeps track of what did they type when they put in their password, for example. Unfortunately, that's not even an exhaustive list, but it gives you an idea of the things that are possible. Okay, so then I mentioned a phishing scam or phishing attack. It's another kind of attack that it works often hand in hand with malware. Like I said, it's like ransomware that is attached to, is something that comes along with a phishing attack. But it's a little bit different because it is specifically the practice of sending fraudulent communications, fake communication that appear to come from somebody legitimate, from a trusted source. Usually it goes through email or through a text message. And the goal is to steal money, to gain access to sensitive information, or to install malware onto your device. It's different because it's kind of a social engineering trick. This is a con that is getting worked on people. The attackers are relying on tactics like emotional manipulation. They use fear, they use curiosity, they use a sense of urgency that they develop in the message. Or sometimes just greed, like you won $10,000, click here. They're using these things to try to compel you to click links, to provide sensitive data. Um, so, classic, very, very old scam was you're being contacted by a prince in a faraway country who has just realized that you are their long lost relative, or that they want to help you, that they want to be able to send you money. We've grown kind of past that. I'm pretty sure that if anybody got an email saying that they were contacted by a prince in a faraway country, easy delete. I know that's not real. But they've also gotten a lot more sophisticated. So now, like Manis had mentioned, now it might be an email that looks like it's coming from your boss. But it's not really, because there's something wrong about the email address, or there might be something kind of off in the message, or what kind of information they're asking for. Anyone can be the target of a phishing scam. Most of these phishing scams actually target numerous blocks of email addresses at the same time, hoping that just some percentage of people are going to be taken in by the trick. It's effective because it exploits all the vulnerabilities of human nature. A call for help, most people don't pass that by. A request from a boss, like that's what we're programmed to do. Our boss asked us for a piece of information. I'm going to give it to them, right? And AI has made phishing even more effective because it can correct things like spelling errors that used to be a giveaway in messaging. It can personalize texts in a way that sound a lot more human than they used to. They can even use AI to create very sophisticated voice messages now. So they can take a recording of somebody's voice and use the AI to make that same voice say something else. We've actually seen this and heard this in movies where they're using recordings of people who have passed and making those recordings say things that for new scripts. So it's a very advanced technology right now, and it's I'm not gonna lie, it's pretty scary what they're capable of doing. Um, so what can I do? Because this sounds awful, right? This sounds terrible. Um, do things to protect yourself, like install antivirus software. Use a reputable vendor, update it, and use it regularly. Be very, very careful about opening attachments or links, even when it's sent to you by somebody that you know. If you're not expecting it, like my example of cousin Mary sending me a Word document that I have never heard of before, um, ask them if they did that. If I got an email from cousin Mary, I can text her separately or give her a phone call and just ask, did you mean to send that to me? Is that on purpose? I'm not going to open it till you do. Um, make sure that everything about it seems usual. So if you get a business email at 3 o'clock in the morning and your boss is asking you for a document that they should have access to, like, hey, I need you to send me the account information for our very, very important client right now. It's 3 o'clock in the morning. I know you're not at work, you're sleeping. And you should have access to that information already. It's always worth double checking. Nobody should be requesting your password or your account number to verify your identity. This just happened to my best friend. She got a message from her bank, supposedly, saying that they needed her to authorize a transfer. And her husband was out of town. And she thought, oh my goodness, he might be trying to do a transfer. And since he is out of town, they might really need my verification. And before checking with him, she did call the number that they gave. And she started going through, and they're saying, they had her name, they had her bank, they had the bank that she was banking with, but then they started asking her to verify information about her account, which is what kind of put her back up. And she suddenly said, no, you should have that information. You should know who I am or what my account is. You are the guys that contacted me. They actually started laughing on the phone and said, "What? Don't you trust us?" Which also is kind
Mm.
of a dead giveaway. And she said, "No, I don't." And she hung up and she called her husband next, and it turned out he absolutely had not tried to initiate a transfer. So be very, very careful about following links back, following phone numbers back that are in the messages themselves. Um, if you bank with Chase Bank and they send you a message that seems really, really weird, you can look up the Chase Bank phone number and call them separately. You don't need to use the phone number that's in that email. So any directions to follow links to outside sites or anything, just be very wary about that. And be very, very wary of any requests for money. Any requests for money. Always be careful about that. So when in doubt, you could double check via phone call or a separate avenue to confirm, not anything in the message. So are there any questions on that topic or that front?
I have a question before Jason asks his.
Sure.
Go ahead, Janice.
Can you please address remote access for a while? Because sometimes if you're having trouble with your computer, and let's just say, for example, I call Jason because I know he's very good with that, and and he asked me for access to my computer so that he can fix it. Can you address that a little bit, please?
I will be honest with you, that is outside my scope of expertise. I can say that if you are working with a known person, a known source. I work, for example, for the library, and our IT department does occasionally need to log in and use our computers do like remote access to do things. So I do know if it's somebody that I know, generally they'll also call and give me a heads up though.
Oh, okay.
and
Okay.
let me know, like, hey, this is, so and so from IT. I'm going to need to log into your computer for, and access it. Is that okay? So I know what Bruce's voice sounds like. I know that he works in our IT department. I know all of those things.
And it's not
I
that.
Yeah, and he's a nice guy. So, however, I really can't speak to other situations, and I don't wanna provide bad information, okay?
All
Um,
right.
All
I
right.
have a
Vanessa.
question for you.
Okay,
Oh,
hang
Mrs.
on for,
Mayor?
okay,
We
sure,
have
one
we have a
second.
couple of
I've
Hang
got a
on.
couple
I just
questions.
have I have more of a comment and a question just to kind of piggyback on what you two were just discussing, then we'll get to the raised hands. If
Mhm.
you ever get a call from people that say they're Microsoft, chances are they're not Microsoft anyway, because
Yeah.
Microsoft, if you call them and you want them to do a remote session, they use a tool called Quick Assist. And any of these phone scammers that will call you or these emails and they'll say, oh, we're Microsoft and we detected it as a virus, they want to use third-party software like TeamViewer or AnyDesk or anything other than Quick Assist. Don't ever do it.
Mhm.
So that was the comment that I was going to make because that's a surefire way of of saying that they'll that they're Microsoft. But I
Mhm.
want to get to our raised hands. I think we had a raised hand and we had a gentleman. So I think Vanessa had
l-
her hand raised.
That's good. I
let's
see
do the raise hand first, and then I'll take the gentleman.
Vanessa.
I have Vanessa.
Mhm.
Yes. Hi.
Hi,
Great.
Vanessa.
Hi. Great discussion.
Thank
I
you.
have a question. For some reason, I am getting email after email after email saying that we have completed your transaction. Um, please, check the attachment to ensure everything is correct.
Mhm.
You should be getting your order soon. Et cetera, et cetera.
Mhm.
Mhm.
And so I'll go in and it's an email. I'll
Mhm.
block the sender
Good.
and it continues to come
Yeah.
to dip by different, senders.
Mhm.
And it seemed like it started happening when when I did a donation, and I did the donation in PayPal. I've never used PayPal before.
Mhm.
And, I did the donation in PayPal with a credit card.
Mhm.
And it seems as though it started happening right after that. I, I may be incorrect, but, so any idea what scam that is?
You might be correct. I would suspect my best guess is that your email address got sold. A lot of places, and it may have been related to that, and it may have been a coincidence. I really couldn't tell you because I do know PayPal's been around a
Mm,
long time, and so I don't want to say that it was PayPal. That would be, I think, probably a little bit irresponsible for me to say that. But what happens a lot when we sign up for things, when we donate, when we put our address in as like a email address as the contact for a GoFundMe or signing a petition or signing up for a membership card at a store, is that that email address goes on a list, and then we are going to get an uptick in junk messages that we don't
Mm.
want. Um, and I I wish I knew a way to deal with it.
mm,
I really don't. Um,
okay.
Blocking and marking as junk repeatedly will often train your email that this is junk and start filing them into the junk folder. But I almost always get a huge uptick if I cave and I'm like, "Ugh, I really want to sign up for this newsletter and I know what's going to happen," and I do, and then I get a bunch of other junk that comes. But I
Mm,
got the coupon I wanted. Um, so
right,
just be
right.
mindful that you're not clicking anything in those emails. You did absolutely correctly identify them as, junky, scammy type of emails. Um, but
Okay,
but
okay. I mean,
that's
it
the thing.
just continues to come that they completed my order. So of course I'm enticed to click on the attachment because I'm not ordered anything. And so now I delete any personal information. Like I don't keep stuff on my I don't, I'll delete, my bank information and all of that. If I use it, I use it. And then I delete the file. Now, so if by chance, some kind of spyware or whatever invaded my computer, if that file isn't there, meaning I deleted it, would it still be able to be accessed? That was my last question.
Again, I'm gonna start with that's a little bit past my area of expertise. I could tell you what
Okay.
it's that I do know. Is that spyware, for example, is not it's an ongoing thing. So you may have deleted what you have done in the past, but that can stick around until the next time you log in or you download something. There's a lot of things that may be deleted, but still a bit of it is left on your computer if the trash or the recycle bin on your computer hasn't been emptied in a bit. It might still exist somewhere. So I guess the short version would just be just that mindfulness, that footnote of the beginning. Like we are going to do everything we possibly can, and nothing is ever going to be fully secure. So you're doing a lot of the right things, it sounds like. And we just have to keep doing those right things and not think, none of us can ever be complacent and think, well, I am fully safe. I have the best password. I change it every month and I've deleted everything. Unless you are an absolute pen and paper and your house is locked up and you do not ever, ever, ever go online, none of us is ever going to be
safe.
None of us. And that sounds like such a bummer, depressing thing to think, but it also just kind of reminds us that we just have to be vigilant, right?
And we just get an information today that there's this big breach with Social Security, right?
Yeah. We just
oh my God.
can do our best. We can just
unbelievable.
Do
okay, thank you very much.
Thank
yeah.
you. And,
Thank you, Vanessa.
that's really good. Yeah, and someone put in the chat that the scammers also can change their phone numbers. It's called spoofing. So they can make their phone numbers look like anything that they basically want. So that's something else to keep in mind.
They sound just professional. And John, yes, exactly. The short answer is yes. The short answer is always yes. Almost always they can just get probably not even almost always. It's probably safer to just say always in balance. That information is there and can be got. There had been somebody who it was a phone number, so I
6119
had asked a question. Yeah. Hi, thanks for your patience.
There.
Hi.
And questioning something about, I just got a letter from Chase Bank saying that they were hacked.
Oh gosh.
And so basically, how do you protect yourself from the people that are like Chase Bank, Bank America, whatever the case may be, and you do anything afterwards? Do you change your account number? What would you do to protect?
Me personally, I would make sure I change all my passwords. If they have the account number, there's not much I could do. I would go through your bank, through the organization.
They were hacked, and what they got was personal information that Chase Bank collects about who you are and any other information that you've given them. So it's not just getting into your account, it's finding out all the things you say not to do, that one place they can get everything.
Yeah, it's really hard. The best we can do is, change the things that you can change. You're not going to be able to change your name. It's your name. That's the one you got. So your social, we're kind of stuck with per the government rules. But you can make sure that the ways to get to your things and your stuff is changed when you know about it. So when we get those notices about data breaches, about hacking, like I said, my husband works in IT, and the first thing he starts doing is just changing his passwords again, to try to keep that information as private as we can. It's It's unfortunately, it is very much a best we can do system. It is a doing the best we can do system with a myriad of people who are also working to do their very best to do the opposite. So it's a constant battle. It's a thing that we have to work on all the time.
Okay, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Thank you. All righty.
Thank you, Arthur.
I do have a question, but I'll wait for Nelly.
Absolutely. Hi, Nellie.
Hi, Nellie.
So, a few months ago, there was a breach of AT&T nationwide, and they did offer people to sign up with a company that monitors identity theft. And so there are these companies. So if Chase Bank had a big breach, one would think that they would offer you some way to sign up with one of these identity theft companies that monitor it at their cost.
Yes, a lot of those offers exist, and I would take people up on that. It's a good way to kind of get an extra, just get an extra hand helping you monitor your accounts and make sure that everything is as it seems. So thank you for reminding us of that.
Thank you, Vanessa. Is there, I think someone put a question in the chat.
Yeah, I see the question that says, I have a ton of login credentials for companies I haven't done business with for years. Is there a way or is it worthwhile to close those credentials down? I would say that I think that it probably is worthwhile. I do not know a one-shot way of doing that. But if you have the time and the patience, I can't imagine that it would hurt. I don't know. I wish I could tell you that I knew an easy way to just say, yes, deactivate all of those old accounts that I don't use. That I could not tell you. But I don't think it would hurt any to get rid of those accounts if you have the ability to do that. If you don't use them though, I really I couldn't speak to with certainty about that. On a company by company basis. I mean, if you know for sure, like I'm canceling my Costco membership and I'm definitely not going to use it, you can absolutely, as you go, try to delete or deactivate those accounts for sure.
Okay. That's great. Sorry, Manish, you were going to ask something?
Yes. Here's my question. Let's say, for example, you have a contractor. Let's say you have a busted pipe in your house. You need a plumber. So you call a plumber to come do a job for you. What is the best way to pay them? Do you use a check, Zelle, cash? What is the best way? Because once you give a check, I mean, they have your routing number, your bank account number, and how can you protect yourself? And what is the best way to pay a contractor who comes to your house to do a job for you?
I'm going to be honest with you, that is outside the scope of my experience. I would say that you also there's some degree of trust that whether do you trust this person to give them a check, do you want to pay them in cash, where you don't have that record that happened in the same way. Do there's a lot of factors that I really couldn't say or promise what is going to be the best option for you. I mean, if you think about if you pay with a credit card and something goes wrong, there's ways to dispute that where cash you can't do that. I think there would be a lot of factors to consider, and I really don't want to speak to something that I can't say that I am an expert on. I'm sorry.
That's all right.
All right.
Thank you very much. I don't have any more raised hand. Go ahead, Jason. If you can ask your question now. Sorry about that.
No, the only thing I was going to kind of comment on was about your question, and I would think about using a service like PayPal or something where in case there's a problem, like there's like a third party you can go to. So when you use one of these services, you're paying through them. And if there's something wrong with the payment, these companies could act as like a mediator, I would think, in some type of way, if there's a problem with your payment. So I would definitely never recommend cash. There's no paper trail that way. So the more of the paper trail you can leave, the better you are.
Yeah, but it's like sometimes now, I mean, okay, I'll give you a check, but I give the person a check and they have everything.
Right. Yeah.
Name, address, phone number,
Right.
routing
So,
number, bank account number. It's like,
yeah.
okay, there is no level of protection anymore.
Right. So even when you do things like through PayPal or Zelle or Cash App or Venmo or any of these other companies or Apple Pay, whatever you want to use, at least there's some type of record, and in case there's a problem, you can always go back. So that would only be my recommendation, just from experiencing different things. I would only give like a check to certain people who I know or trust. If I don't know somebody, I'm definitely going to say, do you take PayPal or Venmo or something like that, so I can use something and have some type of protection.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Right. If anybody has any other questions, I'm happy to answer them. But otherwise, that is the end of the presentation that I have prepared. And I want to thank you all for having me and for all your very good questions. I really appreciate your attention. Thank
Oh,
you.
yeah. No, thank you so much, Katrina. We really appreciate it.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
as you mentioned, this subject is just huge. And,
It is.
we can be like here discussing this for hours and hours and hours and hours. And all I can say is to everybody out there and anybody who listens to this recording later on is, be aware out there. And the worst thing is getting caught up in some type of scam or phishing attack or anything like that. So there's plenty of tools out there on our computers, our phones, our tablets, and even third party like identity protection programs. And while some are free, some are free, some there's a charge. Regardless of that, use what's available out there. So thank goodness, we have a whole myriad of different products out there that are available, that where we can be smarter and savvier people, especially when we're dealing with, cybersecurity and being online in general. So,
Absolutely.
yeah,
And
definitely.
also you can double check. I would love to recommend using resources like Consumer Reports or things that are unbiased resources that can give reviews of a variety of those things. You can access, I'll pitch the library briefly. You can access Consumer Reports with your library card if you live in Palm Beach County. But that is a good way also to kind of get an idea of how these things work and how they would potentially work for you, to help you out.
Sure, there sure is.
Thank you.
Is there any other last questions or comments for Katrina?
I don't have any raised hands.
Okay. All
So
right. All right, Katrina. Well, thank you so much. We really do appreciate it, and definitely would love to have you come back and,
definitely.
further and have a further discussion about this, because I mean, there's so much that's coming up more and more every day regarding this topic. And like you said, some people make this their full-time job. It's just learning this and whatnot. So. But I really wanted to appreciate your time and thank you so much for taking out time of your busy schedule.
Oh, you are very welcome. And I want to respond to this last comment in the chat thing that says thank you for tying all of my bits of information that I already knew on cybersecurity with the stuff I didn't into a complete program. I feel more confident already, and I just have to say thank you so much for saying that. I'm so glad that that was helpful for you, and I really appreciate that. So thank you.
Oh, absolutely wonderful. Yeah, no, definitely. Well, thank you so much. And like I said, we'd love to have you back in the future.
You are welcome. Have a wonderful afternoon,
Thank
folks.
Thank you.
you. All
Bye.
right.
Bye.
Well, folks, we certainly hope you enjoyed today's presentation. We really enjoyed bringing it to you. And it's a really important subject that you would think is so important to all of us because, as I said, with just the fact of you being online right now, listening to this presentation and going online every day, which we realize so much on the internet, and we really need to be aware of what's out there and how to protect ourselves. So definitely keep up on trends, keep up on what's out there, and just be aware. That's basically what it comes down to. All right. We have a few announcements. First of all, next we have our next month's workshop. I'd like to talk about that just really quick. We will have representatives from Glidance about the new Glide mobility device. I had an opportunity to see this at one of the national conventions in the summer, last month, and it's wonderful. So we're really looking forward to having Glidance be with us next month. And then also, I had mentioned earlier that this workshop was being recorded, which it is, and it's available in a variety of different ways. So first of all, we post this link to our recording on our Florida Outreach Center for the Blind mailing list. And also, we post it to our website as well. So with that, I'm going to let Manus talk about our website.
Oh, please do visit us on our website, which is blindfocb.org. We have so much information that tells you a little bit about the center, what we do, the services that we provided, independent living, Braille, orientation, mobility, assistive technology, and upcoming events. So please take a moment to visit our website, blindfocb.org. We would greatly appreciate you visiting us. And also, you can call us at the center. The phone number is 561-642-0005. If you have any question, if you are curious about what we do at the center, please give us a call, 561-642-0005.
Right. Thank you, Manus. And then also one other piece of information is while we're on this workshop, with this same Zoom information that you're using today, we host a monthly talking book club discussion, which takes place on the last Wednesday of every month. So that would be on August the 28th, right? August 28th at 3:00 p.m. Eastern time. And it's a very informal discussion. Nobody is muted like right now. Everybody's unmuted, and it's just a nice small group right now. Of course, we love to see it grow, so we definitely invite everybody. You don't have to be a member of you don't have to be a client of ours. Anybody's welcome, whether you read the book or not. This month's book is The Templar Legacy by Steve Berry. And that's available on Bard for those that are interested. But we'd love to have you just join in. Even if you want to just come and listen and check it out, you're welcome to do that as well. Manus, do you have any other announcements before we go?
No, that's about it. Thank you so much for joining us, and we hope to see you at our next workshop in September.
Yep. Thank you so much, folks. And we appreciate you coming out. And we hope you all enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you.
All right.
Take care.